Hello, Amy.
Hi, Mark. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's all good.
Great. Oh, hi, Hugo. Hi. So okay, you see, Hugo, who just joined, was a candidate back in 2018. So it's so nice to see you. Okay, so Mark, shall we just crack on?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so you're, let's just tell everybody that you're calling from Moscow.
Right now, yes.
Yes, I just find that so fascinating because I'm right now in Indonesia, and you're in Moscow, and I'm sure a lot of people who will be watching our videos, London or all over the place. So it's really nice to be able to connect. And so,
International live session.
yes. So to everybody who's watching, Mark won our Virtuoso Prize, which is our top prize last year in 2019, New Talent International Youth Music Competition. And so, Mark, can you tell us, because you've had a very international background, especially in your music studies.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So could you introduce yourself, please?
Well, my name is Mark, as you have noticed. I was born in London in 2001. I started my music career when I was about 5 years old, so very early, in fact.
Mm.
But I didn't actually start with violin. I started with piano, and I gradually got into thinking that violin is something that I like more. And for the first, let's say, 10 years of studying. I studied back in London, so from 6 to 15 years old. I went to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. That's probably where I got most of my beginning
Mm.
skills in my childhood, and that's where most of my musical life was happening back in London. After that, I moved to Paris to study more, and that was when I was 15 years old. I studied at École Normale de Musique de Paris. It's a private conservatory in the central of Paris, and I went there because I was invited by a professor that I went to during a master class, and that was very interesting as well. And I studied there
Mm.
for about 3 years before coming here to Moscow and finally settling down here for the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. So, at Guildhall, was that the junior Guildhall?
Junior department, yes.
Oh. Did you find, because I'm sure, let's talk about the music side first. I'm just so fascinated by your journey. Um,
Sometimes
could
I am as
you,
well.
could you tell me, for example, I'm sure well, each teacher would have a different style, but you hear a lot of the Russian school, the Russian style, and then the French style, and then the British style. So from your own personal experience, um, is that all true? What's your find?
True about what? Sorry.
The general conception about the Russian school being very strict, that's what I heard. Um, whereas the British probably focus more on the musical side, and also chamber music. Um, and so, what do you find is the difference between the three countries?
Well, there are very big differences, but quite a lot of similarities as well. So it's
Mm,
really difficult to say it very directly and to describe. But I would say it is true that in England, in the British Musical Society, we tend to focus more, well, we focus a lot on chamber music, on orchestral music. And I think that is very important because this is where we get a lot of experience as team players, not just as soloists. Whilst here in Russia, there is a general tendency to follow the soloist path for everybody. And we do have orchestra and we do have chamber music, but I guess it could be a little more, and it's a little
mm,
bit to the side from the soloist path. And I guess that's the only problem. But musicality is really, really well done here. And I would say that as a soloist, you can get a lot of opportunities to develop here in Moscow.
mm. Yes, I really want to go to Moscow because some of my favorite composers are Russian, and I admire so many of the, current musicians who are from Russia. Um, so What's
A lot
your
of them studied at my school.
great. So what's your lesson like? In a lesson, because now with coronavirus going on, your lessons will be all online.
Yes, all of them. Even violin lessons have to be online, which is, of course, it's very uncomfortable to do. And it's quite a bit of a challenge because internet is not always very, very good, and it's
Mm,
difficult to get together with the professor, and because we need to choose this time when all our internet is working, when we
yeah.
feel kind of, comfortable of doing it, and you don't always hear what he's saying. So I can be playing for like 10 minutes. He's already been saying like five different things. I didn't hear anything because I was playing. And then he's like, "Why are you playing? Shut up." Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sorry, I just didn't hear you."
Yes.
So there's a lot of these logistical problems that happen because of this. And of course, it's much worse than having direct lessons, but it's, of course, it's better than nothing.
Mm, yes. So what's the frequency now, the lessons? Once a week?
Once or twice a week, yeah, mostly once.
Okay. And what about performing wise? Do you have sort of online concerts amongst your peers?
I mean, the closest I've had to that is that I had an interview with some of my friends at school, and they asked me to play for them
Yeah.
during a Skype call. And I guess that was the closest I get to a concert. Of course, that's not enough for for a real concert career, but for now, I mean, at least something is going on.
Yes. And so let's get back to your personal musical journey and how you traveled between the countries as a music student. Because I guess you living in different, when you went to Paris, how old were you?
15.
15. And did you go there by yourself?
Well, my parents introduced me to everyone there. Then they were like, "Okay, good luck, man. Come on," because they
Yeah.
had to stay. They couldn't just move. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was kind of I was living at a host family, so I guess I did have some guidance, but
Mm,
mostly everything I was doing was independent, and it was up to me if I was gonna go to school or stay at home.
yeah. Yes. 15. So that's also the age when I went to school in England from China. Yes, it's such a big change. Do you find that going into a different culture helps you in any way as a musician?
Oh, definitely, because as a musician, you can get a taste of the different musical opinions, musical ways, and how people just how they interpret music in different countries. And if you get all this together and you manage to not get your mind blown away from from all the difference, and you kind of incubate this musical experience in yourself, then you actually get much better, much more interesting as a musician when you perform.
Yeah. And so obviously that for you happened twice. So when you moved to France and then from there moved to Russia. Um,
Yeah,
so the opportunity to move to Russia. So currently you're studying at the Central Music School, which
yeah,
is attached to Tchaikovsky Conservatory.
yeah. It's like their junior department, basically.
It's so fascinating. I really want to go there sometime. Um, so what brought you there? What is there a professor that you want to study with?
Yes, well, I went to a masterclass again. Like all these things, all the adventures start with a masterclass. That's what I've noticed. So
Mm,
literally, there were no plans of changing anything before I went to this masterclass, and that professor told me that it's a very good idea for me to go and study in Moscow. And I was like, "Are you sure? Because I'm fine. I can stay in Paris." But he was really, really like he was really strong on telling me that I had to go there, and he convinced me,
okay.
and he was like, you just should do it," and that happened from there.
Right. How did he convince you? What's his reason?
Well, firstly, when I took lessons from him during the masterclass, it was really interesting. It was something new, and I didn't have lessons like this before, so I was like, wow, this is so interesting. And he kind of got really interested in me as well, and he was like, I could really develop you as a performer, as a musician, if we would study more. And so after that, when I came to Moscow, I started studying with this guy, so with the same guy that I went to the masterclass with. So,
I see.
you know, it's kind of, we just were really interested in making music, and that's how it just happened.
So when you mentioned that during the masterclass, it was really fresh and there was something new. What was the new thing that you didn't have before?
That's a good question. Well, you know, it was kind of this craziness about playing. He let me do whatever I wanted, and he didn't actually tell me that, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Like there were no rules. I could literally do anything I want. And he was like, oh, that's a great idea, mate. You should do this, yeah. And you know, it was just this kind of musical powerhouse. We could literally change anything. We could even change a bit of the musical phrasing in a piece. Something that I thought should completely stay as it is, stay intact. He could change that, and he could just be like, just play it differently. No one's forcing you to play it like this. And you know, this emancipation, this freedom of interpretation that he gave me, that was the most interesting part. That's what got me there, basically.
Yeah, no, that sounds very exciting. I can sort of relate because when you have someone who encourages you to try new things and then that sort of freedom, I think is the core of being a musician, right? You are free then to express yourself. Then do you
Yeah.
find, after moving to Moscow and to study there, do you find your music to be more free, your style to be sometimes more sort of out of the box?
Yeah, I think it definitely developed from when I was 15, from when I was 16, because I tended to be more closed inside myself, if I could say like this. So I was really academic, really um, like I followed everything in the score, literally. Like if there was a little pianissimo or a little like place
Mm,
where I didn't have to play vibrato, I never played vibrato. So I would never break the rules. And you know, sometimes you just have to break the rules, because if you don't, then you're just gonna play like everybody else, and then you
mm,
know there's no point, because there's already a lot of performers that just do what's written in the sheet music. So I guess right now I do feel much more at liberty of doing what I want. Of course, within boundaries, certain boundaries. So if I'm playing Bach,
mm.
I can't play it like I'm playing a
Yeah.
tango of the 20th century or something like that. But but
Yes.
definitely in other things, definitely I've become more developed, and I can show more musical taste.
Great. And do you find that's a sort of more common amongst your peers in Moscow, that people around you, do they have similar musical styles? Or
To be
everyone is so
fair,
different?
everyone is different, yeah. But in Moscow, there is a tendency of really focusing on your technical ability and not focusing too much on everything else. So they do
Mm,
play really well in terms of technical things. Some people, there's a lot of people who play more, they are more technically able than I am, because
mm,
they've did this all their life, but they lack the experience that I do
mm,
already have. So perhaps some of their performances sound really kind of, one tasted, really a bit dull. So it's really technical, but this technicity, it gets boring from time to time. So maybe
mm,
for the first time when you come to their concert, you're like, wow, this is amazing. This guy can play everything. But then when you come to the second time, he plays the same way, and the third time he
mm,
plays the same way, and it just gets kind of boring. Not everybody, there are different people. It's definitely everyone's very different, but that is a
mm.
tendency.
I see. Um, so now you are in the junior department, but it's not like UK, the junior department's just Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's like a
But
full-on
there,
school.
yeah, it's a full-on school. So every day, so if we are not in COVID, in a normal situation, you would be going to school every day.
Yes, every day, and like from morning to evening, literally, because even though our lessons start from the second part of the day, so we start from the afternoon, not in the morning,
Mm,
because the morning is the younger people have their lessons. So from year 1 to year 9 or something, they have their lessons in the morning, and we have our
mm,
lessons in the afternoon. But we actually practice in the morning, so we use that time to to practice or to have lunch or anything
Mm.
else. So
Yeah,
we pretty much we spend all our time in this school. It's like our second home, to be honest.
great. And do you have how many, so apart from the one lesson a week with your professor, um, what other sort of teaching or guidance do you have throughout the week?
Oh, there are plenty of lessons, like, and they're all integrated, so they're in the same building. You don't have
Mm.
to run anywhere else, so it's all in one place. You have a timetable which has all the musical and academic subjects together. So all you really have to do is just follow the timetable, and there's chamber music, which, but in Russia, in our school at least, chamber music actually means only with piano. So it can be a violin sonata, it can be a trio with piano or a piano quartet or
Mm.
anything like that. But we have a separate subject for string quartet, so it's totally different. It's called quartet, and that's a different subject. So we have both.
I see, I see. And then
Well,
orchestra?
yeah, orchestra we have it once or twice a week. Well, we had it before COVID, obviously.
Yeah, I
But our
see.
orchestra was really small compared to the one I had in Guildhall, so that is a kind of a problem. Our school is full of pianists, and we don't have a lot of other people, and we have a very big lacking of woodwind and brass. There's
Yeah.
really like you can count the people on your hands. There's really not a lot of people there, and that's kind of that limits our repertoire, and that's why we don't play a lot of things because it's impossible to play it without these instruments.
Mm, yes. So
So our
when you
orchestra, it
guys,
looks kind of ridiculous. So there's like 40 violins and there's like
uh,
three violists and like five cellists and like one woodwind player or something like that. So we really
so
have a
what,
limitation.
yeah, what repertoire do you do?
Well, we managed to play Tchaikovsky's piano concerto, first one, and it actually worked. So
Great. No, so when you guys do the quartet, for example, or other orchestral stuff, what do the pianists do?
well, the pianists they have a different subject instead of quartet. It's called how's it called? Wow, let me remember, because I'm trying to translate in Russian. It's like a accompanist class, so they get to accompany other instruments, or normally they accompany singers. So uh, the
Mm,
singer repertoire, they just they get presented any kind of repertoire, and they have to accompany them. So they do that instead of our chamber music. But they have chamber music like with the piano because they're
I
pianists,
see.
obviously.
Yes, yes. So now with what's happening with COVID, so I guess all these things are on hold. They're not happening anymore.
Yeah, well, there's really limited ways that we can do these subjects. The only thing we do is that sometimes we send in some recordings and our teachers just tell us that if it's good or not and like what can we improve. But that is definitely a limitation compared to what was before COVID.
Right. And what about you personally? Do you find, have you been finding this time challenging?
This time is definitely challenging because all this time that's now free, it's just
Mm.
in a way it's good, but in a way it actually is really bad for your discipline because you just I keep losing track if it's day or night. Literally, I'm not sure. I can wake up and I'll be like, I don't know what time it is. I don't know what day it is. So
Mm.
these kind of things, I mean, definitely not good for a musician because I tend to organize all things that happen, and when I go to school, everything's really like in place. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Whilst now it's kind of if I want to do something, I do it. If I don't want to do it, I don't do it. And so I have no impulse.
Right. So now, how's your practice going? Do you do it every day?
I do try, yes. Mostly I manage a couple of hours a day, but the problem is that I have to play the same thing and my repertoire doesn't change. So the only
Mm.
thing I can do is that I just search for pieces myself and I play something new. But like I have a very big sheet music library and I've already played like nearly everything from there. I just get really bored now and it's just really difficult to get through all
Yeah.
these things.
Well, Mark, if it helps, I have some Chinese repertoire I can send you. So you could
Let's go.
discover.
I haven't played that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good fun. They all sound very nice. So no, I'll be very happy to share some with you.
If there's something for violin, I'll be really happy to play it.
Yeah, sure. Um, so in terms of the practice, I guess that's the same story for a lot of people, especially, music students in college, because you are limited in terms of your lessons. So new repertoire is quite limited. So you're stuck with your old repertoire for you don't know
For a
how
long
long.
time, definitely. Yeah.
Um, so maybe I guess, do you think it could be a good time to go back to the basics and work on your technique, the bow stroke, left hand clarity, all that sort of thing? Have you been doing
Definitely,
that?
definitely. Yes, I start my practice with these things, and yeah, definitely get some time to think about the basics. And it is important to get back to it. I guess that's one of
Mm,
the only positive things that happen during this
mm,
quarantine is that you can get some time to think about the things that are essentially really important, but we tend to forget
mm,
about them. So
mm.
that is a very good thing.
Yeah. So in Russia, is there any sort of system for technique work, for the string, for the violin? Um,
Yeah, well, in Russia they really focus on scale, so they like force you to play it, and they force you to play really difficult scales, so like 4 octave scales, and you need to play on full bow. So you play up 4 octaves up on one bow and 4 octaves down on another bow, and it's really you have to play really fast, and it has to be clear, and they really judge you really strictly on this, because they find it really important, and I guess that is very good that they do it, but I wasn't ready for it when I just came here, and I did play scales, but not to this kind of level, and
yeah.
I had to get used to it, and it wasn't easy for me to do that then. They also have these exercises by Schradig. It was a German composer. I think it's the 19th
Mm.
century. He wrote like a full book of exercises for violin, and here everybody just loves these exercises. I don't know why, but they just love it, and they make everybody play it, and they're like, Schradig is just what you have to do every day. It's like your bread and butter.
I see. What is it like? What does it involve?
Well, it's like gradually increasing difficulty of exercises. So it starts with just a couple of like scale-like passages, and then after that it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then after that it gets into double stops as well, and you have to play double stops really fast. So it's like a full volume of different exercises, but they get harder and harder.
Right. Well, it sounds like, Mark, you shouldn't be too free. All these things to get on with.
Even
Yes,
these
so
things get boring, to be fair.
yeah, no, yeah. No, I'm not saying that you should do that all day, every day. But I think, me
Not much more to
personally,
do.
yeah. No, for me personally, I just definitely find this time to be very useful for going back to the basics for everything really, music
No, that's
and
correct. The only thing is
so
that we
Mark,
have uh, we have entry
yeah,
examinations for the conservatory that are gonna be really soon. Well, they're supposed to be. No one actually knows when they're gonna be, but we're always living with this thought that maybe they're gonna be tomorrow, and so we have to be ready for doing this. And so we can't forget, we can't put away our old repertoire because that's the repertoire we're gonna use to get in. So that's the
yeah,
repertoire we're gonna play for the audition. So that's really uncomfortable because you're just forced to play the same thing because if you forget it, then it's just going to get worse. And so we live with that, and that's unfair. This
yeah.
is
No,
why I
that's
hate COVID the most.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because you mentioned last time that you still have your entry exam to do before, well, assume before the beginning of next term. So
Yeah.
what are you asked to play? What's the size of the repertoire?
Oh, it's pretty massive. There's two parts of a concerto. There's one
Mm,
virtuoso piece with piano, preferably, but I think you can also play a solo piece. But my piece is with piano. There's two
mm-hmm.
movements of a Bach sonata, and there are two caprices they have to play. Well, you can choose which one, but one has to be Paganini. So
I,
you won't get an easy start anyway. So it's
I
pretty it's pretty challenging, and it's pretty big as well. So if they do ask us to do a full-on audition with an actual panel in July, perhaps, then we'd have to be ready. And we don't get a lot of practice with teachers at the moment because of all this Skype calls, and a lot of teachers are not actually available for Skype, so they're not in the city, they don't have a good internet, so it's definitely a problem. And besides the audition repertoire, we also have oral tests, which are like pretty hard, and we have to remember like our own small piece, and we have to play it in a couple of different keys. So they can ask us at the audition that F sharp major, and you have to play this piece in F sharp major. It's this kind of exam that they do in Moscow. It's really, really difficult. So we have to do that as well.
So that could happen anytime.
Yeah. If the situation gets better, they would definitely do it like in July. So it's like in 1 month.
Okay. Well, good luck with that, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes. And so I also wanted to ask whether you would have any advice for doing recordings, because this year, because everything's online, including our competition this year, so the young musicians would have to present themselves with a video instead of being in person. Do you have any advice for them on how best to produce a good piece of recording?
Well, my first advice would definitely be practice before you do it, because if you try to do it after like 30 minutes of practice, it just won't work. It will get worse, and then you have to do like millions of takes, and at the end of the day you'll just get really angry, and at the end it will just get worse, and you'll have to do it again tomorrow, and it'll be a very long time for you to record. So I guess like a good hour or 2 hour of practice before making the recording, that would be a good idea, because it would get you prepared, and you probably would need only 1 or 2 takes to make a good recording. What I could also say is try to pretend like it's not there, the recording device that you use. It's not there, it's not listening to you. You're just playing for yourself or for your family, but definitely not for the recording, because if you start thinking about that, you'll get into this perfectionist kind of mindset, and you'll get worried, and you might make a mistake. It's more probable if you think about these things. If you just ignore it, you can actually play much better, and it will be a much better recording. And thirdly, I would say try to preserve as much musicality as you can, even though it's difficult when you record, because you can't really see a lot of musical things going on when you're looking at a video recording, because really limited things you can do there. But still try to perform like you're at a concert. So with full on drive, with emotion. And if that happens, if you put yourself into it, I guess there's a very big chance that you'll have a very good recording, and you'll probably get a prize.
Yeah, no, excellent advice. Thank you very much, Mark. So you won a top award last year, 2019. From the competition, what did you sort of learn about yourself from the competition, and did you like your experience?
Yes, definitely. I mean, my experience, it started with a very hot day. So
Yes, it was very hot. Yes.
yeah, I came there and I was like, wow, it's like, I don't know how I'm going to play with this kind of weather, because I feel like I'm dying, I'm boiling from the weather. And I guess that was actually a challenge by itself, because it's really difficult to play when you're really hot and sweaty, and you didn't even start playing yet, you're already hot. So, that was a very, very challenging experience. And I think actually it's really good for you, because it's like an extreme way of performing, and it helps you to perform well when there's nothing going on, when there's a stable kind of atmosphere around. I think the competition was very well organized, and I would like to thank you again for the experience, because it was really easy. It was really straightforward. Everyone was really friendly, very informative, and I like that, because the worst thing is that when you come for a competition and you don't know where you have to go, where you're going, and you can't see anyone who wants to help you. Whilst in Harrow was really spot on. Like anyone could help you around, and there was always somebody who could give you some advice. So that's a very big plus for new talent.
Thank you. Great. No, I'm so happy to hear that it was a good experience for you. Musically, did you find it a good opportunity to perhaps run some of your repertoire or learn new repertoire?
Yes, well, I performed the Izai solo violin sonata number 3. So I've already been playing that piece for like a month before. So it wasn't something new that I was taking, but it was a very good performance opportunity because I haven't performed a lot this piece before the competition. So it was very important for me to play in front of somebody who in front of a professional jury that could actually listen and give me some advice on how I played. Also, my second choice of repertoire was Elgar, so that was a new composer for me, and I've never played English composers before, actually, and I didn't even know he composed pieces for violin, and so I was really, really pleasantly surprised to play that as well, and I played Elgar's Mazurka from 10 pieces for violin and piano. And so I love that. The accompanist was really good. She was like amazing. I don't know how she managed to play with so many people. And
Yes.
it was a really, really big achievement from her. So that's a very big separate thank you.
Yeah, no, Mina, I'll pass that on. Yes, the wonderful Mina, she worked so hard that day. No, yes,
Oh my
no,
God, yeah.
she's amazing.
We
Yes.
couldn't
Oh,
catch her
great.
because she was just running from place to place, and she was like, "Oh my God, I've got to do this. I've got to play that."
Yes, nice. Next time I'm back in London, I need to treat her. No, yes. I'm so happy to hear that you had a good experience in terms of the competition, also musically. I know you're going to treat us to a live performance, Mark.
Yes, I've been getting ready for that.
Great.
The most
I'm
nervous part of the interview, right?
No, I was thinking to myself, well, Mark said that he was getting a little bit bored, so we should give him a task. So, what are you performing for
Something to
us?
go forward to. I would like to perform the solo violin cadenza from Shostakovich's first violin concerto in A minor.
Wow.
So just a little introduction to this piece. It was written in between the 30s and the 40s, and Opus 99, I think. Yeah, and it was written by Shostakovich like right next to the war years of World War II. He wrote it for his very good friend David Oistrakh, so the very famous musician that we all aspire to. And this concerto is very interesting. It's got 4 movements instead of the traditional 3 that happened before. And the cadenza is like a 5th movement. So it's between the 3rd and the 4th. And the 3rd movement is called the Passacaglia. It is played through, like with violin, there's a very steady piano melody going. And the violin is just like playing its own thing, which doesn't seem to be connected. And at the end, the piano just shuts off and the violin starts playing this cadenza, which is really technically challenging. So that's a bit of a nervous thing to do, but I think I should try to play it in front of you.
Great. Yes. No, looking forward to it.
Shall I get into it?
Mark, are you?
I think there's something wrong with the
Yes,
connection.
please.
Yeah, but I think I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Just tell
Yes,
me
I
if
can
it
hear you.
sounds okay,
Yes.
because if it's too loud or something, because I'm not sure how it's gonna sound. Is it good? Wait a
Yeah,
second.
sounds good.
Can you hear me? Great. So I'm going to play an extract. I'm not going to play the full cadenza, but a small extract from it.
Yes.
Let's bring my chair around.
Wow, Mark. That's fantastic. Really fantastic.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well,
No, really,
it's a
really
challenging
fantastic.
piece.
Wow. How long have you played this piece?
Well, it's been a couple of months now, so I am at liberty with it now. But it's still very difficult. Every time you
Mark?
play it, there's new emotions.
A great performance as well. You should be,
Thank you very much.
yeah. No, so thank you so much, Mark, for your time. And I hope that I'll be able
Thank
to
you for
visit
having me.
you in Moscow before too long. I'm so excited.
Definitely, if you have that opportunity, I'll be happy to welcome you.
Right. So, well, thank you so much, Mark, for your time and for your performance.
Yeah, sure. I can hear that. Yeah.
Okay. Hear me?
Yeah, very happy to see you. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, no.